A lot of bug-in plans focus on what you'll be doing during SHTF, how you'll get water, how you'll cook, how you'll protect yourself and stay safe. And all of those are very important. But they're not the only things you should be thinking about. There could be other potential problems that you should be identifying and addressing now while life is still normal. Because once SHTF hits, your options for dealing with these problems may become much more limited. If bugging in is part of your preparedness plan, here are some things that you should be taking care of now, while you still have the time, resources, and opportunity to do something about it. Before you ever have to bug in, take an honest look at your overall preparedness and try to identify any weak points. The sooner you identify potential flaws, the more time you'll have to address them. Maybe it's a skill you don't possess. One mistake I've made in the past was focusing too much on my strengths. Years ago, I was a part of a preparedness group where different people brought different skills and resources to the table. My focus was on water collection, purification, and on firearms and self-defense. Other members had strengths in areas like gardening and food preservation. When the group eventually went its separate ways, I realized I had a problem. There were skills I had been relying on other people to provide, and I had become comfortable focusing on the areas where I was already strong. That experience exposed a weakness in my own preparedness. Being prepared isn't just about building on your strengths. It's also about identifying areas you need to grow and develop. Weaknesses can exist in your supplies as well. Let's use sanitation as an example, and I'm doing this because currently this is one I'm working on. Let's face it, it's not a particularly exciting topic, and it's certainly not one that gets as much attention as guns and new gear. But if the power is out long enough and/or water service is interrupted, no working toilet will absolutely become important. What are you going to do with your waste? Do you have the supplies necessary to deal with it? Buckets and trash bags? Do you have a portable toilet or some other solution? The specific answer here, though, that's not what I'm getting at. It's recognizing a potential issue before it becomes a problem. Sanitation is just one example. The question is, what problems might you be overlooking in your own preparedness? Weaknesses can also exist on our plans as well. Every preparedness plan has assumptions built into it. Many times, those assumptions are correct, but sometimes they're not. As an example, a lot of people assume they'll just be able to drive home from work when a disaster strikes. But what happens if the interstates are closed? What happens if traffic isn't moving at a standstill? Do you know multiple ways home? Do you have enough fuel to get where you need to go? One habit I've developed over the years is filling my gas tank up when it's half full. It's a simple thing, but it gives me options if I have to take a much longer route home or if fuel becomes difficult to obtain. I also like to occasionally take alternate routes around town, so I stay familiar with road closures, construction, and changes in the area. Getting home is just one example. Like I said, every plan is built on assumptions, whether we realize it or not. The important thing is taking a close look at those assumptions and asking yourself what happens if they're wrong. Take a step back and ask yourself a few what-if questions. What if things don't go the way you expect? What if a resource you were counting on isn't available? What if you had to abandon your vehicle altogether, for example? You don't have to imagine every possible disaster scenario, but it is worth taking some time to think through realistic problems and how they might affect your plans. Sometimes a simple what if question is all it takes to expose a flaw you hadn't considered. You realize just how important your preparedness supplies are, but being able to find them and knowing that they work and how they work is just as important. One thing that has worked well for me is organizing my supplies by category. For example, I keep all my medical supplies together. All my cooking and food preparation equipment, it's kept together. Lighting and power supplies, I keep it together. Most of those items are stored in large plastic totes that are easy to move, stack, and store. And I also label those totes. That way, when I look at a container, I immediately know what's inside without having to open it and dig through everything. In addition to grouping similar items together, I keep all those supplies stored in specific locations in my house. So not only do I know what category an item belongs to, I generally know where to find it. Your system doesn't have to look like mine. The important thing, though, is you need to have a system. Because during a disaster, You don't want to waste time searching the house trying to remember where you put something months or even years ago. Maintaining your gear is just as important as organizing it. A few years ago, a major winter storm was forecast to hit my area. Before it arrived, I started going through some of my preparedness supplies and equipment. And I'm glad I did. I found several things that required attention. Some batteries that need to be charged or replaced. I had a few items that were damaged. And there were pieces of equipment that simply weren't as ready as I thought they were. Fortunately, I discovered these problems before the storm arrived. So I still had time to replace those batteries and make those repairs. But what if a disaster hits before you have that chance? That's one reason I encourage people to periodically go through the equipment they're counting on. Make sure it still works and that it's ready to go. And make sure you know how to use it. An emergency is a terrible time to be reading the instruction manual for the first time, or trying to figure out how something works. Emergencies have a way of exposing neglected equipment and disorganized supplies. It is much better to discover those problems on a calm Saturday afternoon than during an actual disaster. Most preppers are familiar with concepts like OPSEC and keeping certain aspects of your preparedness private. We know that OPSEC has a lot of value, and there is certainly wisdom in being careful about what information you share. At the same time, I don't believe the lone wolf approach is the answer. The people living around us may become more important than we realize. Years ago, I was involved in a neighborhood watch program. One thing I quickly realized was how much you can learn about people around you through ordinary conversations and normal interactions. This isn't because you're investigating them or keeping a file on them. It's simply because that's what happens when you get to know people. For example, one of my neighbors was a police captain. Over time, I learned that he had military and leadership experience, firearms training, and he knew our city extremely well. As time went on, our conversations revealed things that suggested he probably didn't keep much food or ammunition stored at his home. Another neighbor was an elderly woman named Betty. She required some medications and would have likely faced some challenges during a prolonged disaster. But she also had decades worth of experience with gardening, food preservation, and old-fashioned home remedies. The more I talked with my neighbors, the more I began to understand their strengths, their weaknesses, and their circumstances. And as you get to know the people around you, remember, they're learning about you as well. People notice things. Your profession, your routines, your hobbies, maybe projects you're working on. That's not paranoia, it's simply human nature. You may also discover that you have more in common with some of your neighbors than you realize. Shared values and interests, similar concerns, common goals. I know not every neighborhood is the same, and not every neighbor is going to become a close friend. But the better you understand the people living around you, the better you'll understand what to realistically expect if SHTF happens. Some neighbors may bring valuable skills, knowledge, and/or resources to the table. Others may need help, and some may become part of the problem. The best time to learn those things is before circumstances force you to. Since your plan is to bug in, your home is going to become one of your most important resources during an emergency. That makes right now the perfect time to look around and identify problems that can be fixed before they become bigger issues later on. Part of that involves basic home security. Check your doors and windows. Make sure they open, close, and lock properly. Repair any damaged hardware, broken latches, or other issues that could affect their function. And if possible, consider upgrading them as well. That might be something as simple as replacing an older lock with a higher quality deadbolt, reinforcing the strike plate with longer screws, or improving the locks on vulnerable windows. Many of these upgrades can be done by yourself using inexpensive parts available at most home improvement stores. You don't have to turn your home into a fortress, but small improvements can make forced entry more difficult and may encourage an intruder to look for an easier target. You might also consider adding exterior lights around entry points and other vulnerable areas of your property. Motion-activated lights are relatively inexpensive now and can help improve visibility around your home at night. Many of these are now solar-powered and will continue to function even during a power outage. If your budget allows, a few security cameras can provide additional awareness of what's happening around your property. None of these measures are guaranteed to stop someone who is determined, but they can make your home a less attractive target and provide you with more information about what's happening around you. The same principle applies to your landscaping. For example, thorny bushes planted underneath windows can discourage someone from using those windows as an easy point of entry. Security is only one part of the equation. There is also routine maintenance issues that can create problems during an emergency if they're ignored. One example is removing dead trees, dead limbs, and overgrown vegetation from around your property. A dead tree or tree limb isn't a problem until it falls on your roof. Dead vegetation can also contribute to the spread of wildfires. And from a security standpoint, thick overgrowth can create potential hiding places for bad guys, and it reduces visibility around your home. Cleaning up dead vegetation and overgrowth areas around your property can address several potential problems all at once. Another simple thing you can do is to familiarize yourself with your home's utilities. Know where your water shutoff is. Know where your gas shutoff is. Know where your electrical panel is. And just as importantly, make sure you have the tools necessary to access and operate those if needed. A broken water line, gas leak, or electrical problem is stressful enough on a normal day. It's even worse if you're trying to figure it out during SHTF. My wife and I have a tornado shelter in our garage. Every year, usually around March, before tornado season begins, I go through the shelter and I check the supplies and equipment stored inside. And I clean it out. I replace anything that needs attention. And I make sure everything is ready to go for the months ahead. I don't wait until a tornado warning is being issued to discover something is wrong with our shelter. This same principle applies to the rest of your home. It's much easier to identify and fix problems before you need something than it is during an actual emergency. Most of the things we've discussed in this section aren't particularly expensive or complicated. They're simply small steps that you can make to make your home safer, more functional, and easier to live in if you ever have to bug in for a disaster scenario. Bugging in doesn't necessarily mean you never leave your property. In many emergencies, your home simply becomes your primary base of operations. But the area around your home can influence your options during an emergency, both for better and for worse. Most people already know where the major roads, hospitals, shopping centers, and other landmarks in their area are. The question is whether you've stopped to think about how those things could affect you during SHTF. For example, is there a major hospital near your home? Could a large-scale disaster there push traffic, crowds, or other problems into your neighborhood? The same applies with a military base, a large industrial facility, maybe a hydroelectric dam, a busy interstate. Not because those places are automatically a problem, but because events involving them could have effects that reach far beyond their property lines. The more familiar you are with your area, the easier it becomes to recognize potential challenges. One thing I like to do every now and then is just to get in my truck and drive. And when I do, I take back roads and alternate routes around town. Even driving to and from work, I sometimes take a different route just to stay familiar with road construction, closures, and changes in the area. It's not because I'm expecting an emergency. I simply don't want to discover my alternatives for the first time when I actually need them. The same mindset applies to the rest of your community. On the other hand, there may be advantages and resources around you that many people may overlook. A nearby water source, a small, tucked-away hardware store or farm supply store, a less traveled route that avoids major traffic areas. The more familiar you are with your area, the better you'll understand both the opportunities and the limitations that exist around you. Just like every preparedness plan has strengths and weaknesses, so too does every community. The best time to identify those strengths, weaknesses, opportunities, and challenges is before you ever need to rely on them. One thing you'll probably notice about everything we've discussed in this video is that most of this isn't particularly difficult, and a lot of it costs very little or even nothing at all. Now, none of these things will guarantee that an emergency will be easy, but they can help reduce surprises, solve potential problems before they happen, and put you in a better position if you ever find yourself forced to bug in. The best time to take care of these things is while life is still normal and you still have the time, resources, and opportunity to do something about them. If you can do that, you'll be far better prepared than most people. Stay safe out there. For more on this and other prepper topics, be sure to check out the website linked below. There is over a decade's worth of material and knowledge there. And if you like this video, please give it a thumbs up and consider subscribing to the channel. It really helps us out. Thanks for watching.